you'll be taking some questions. Yes?
Morning. The statement goes as follows. The People's Progressive Party has noted with interest that the ruling APNU-AFC coalition administration has maintained an eerie silence on the attack by Kaicho News columnist F. Kissoon on the Cuban-trained medical doctors. The party has also noted that, captured in the editor's note to a letter penned by Adonia Benjamin, a Cuban-trained doctor, Mr. Kissoon claimed that he did not say, quote-unquote, all doctors, and that he referred to many of them. However, his informant and collaborator on the subject, Mr. Adam Harris, in his Sunday column, Cytotech Use is Giving Me Nightmares, contradicts Mr. Kissoon when he stated, quote, sadly, he, Mr. Kissoon, painted with a large brush and smeared every Cuban-trained doctor, end of quote. It is clear from this that all Cuban-trained doctors have been condemned and their professionalism brought into disrepute by the Kaicho News. The silence by the Granger administration on this matter, and worse yet, its failure to support the young professionals and to condemn the Kaicho News is merely further evidence of the uncaring nature of the regime. Kissoon and the Kaicho News have no doubt taken a cue from the APNU-AFC coalition administration, who have demonstrated a noticeable level of disdain for Cuban scholarship returnees, whether in the field of medicine or other disciplines. Further, the party notes that in spite of a contractual agreement which binds the Cuban-trained doctors to 5 years of public service, and in light of the prevailing shortages of medical staff countrywide, some 92 trained doctors are still awaiting placement, having graduated and completed their compulsory one-year internship. This unpleasant, insecure situation has been going on for about 1 year now. Since November 2015, the doctors have been complaining that they were being pushed around by the Ministry of Public Health and that they've received vague responses to their queries as regards registration and placement. This is a reflection of the level of incompetence and maladministration by the APNU-AFC administration. Student nurses matter. The party has also noted the disastrous situation plaguing the nursing sector. The most recent manifestation of this being the uncertainty facing student nurses in connection with a controversy that has arisen over the claim by the Nursing Council about leaked exam papers. The party emphasizes with those student nurses who are disinclined to sit another set of examinations and calls upon the Ministry of Public Health and the Nursing Council to resolve the matter speedily and in the interests of the student nurses whose careers and professionalism, for no justifiable reason, is on the line. UG graduates, the People's Progressive Party extends warm congratulations and best wishes to the 1,628 graduates from the University of Guyana Turkine campus and the 250 graduates who graduated last weekend at the University of Guyana Tain campus. This is another remarkable achievement for our country and marks another milestone in our nation's efforts aimed at national capacity building and institutional strengthening. The government must now move to introduce scholarship support for online university education for students in the Amerindian communities. It must implement teleconferencing facilities between University of Guyana Turkine and 10 campuses, allowing for remote access to lectures for students in Berbice as well as in Georgetown. The PPP opposes the imposition of a graduation fee for potential graduates, since it will result in greater hardship for students who can ill afford it. The government must move to improve the quality of education offered at Berbice and Turkine campuses, and most importantly, provide university-level education to the residents of the Essequibo Coast through the provision of extramural classes on the coast with a view of establishing a university campus or the provision of online facilities. New and modern libraries for both campuses must be placed high on the agenda. With the graduation of 1,878 students armed with university education, it is the task of government to do as they promise, which is, quote, create jobs, jobs, and more jobs in the shortest time possible, end of quote. However, the Granger administration has failed to do so, and as if to add insult to injury, has admonished job seekers by telling them that, quote, employment is not something to be provided by government, and that they must find their own jobs. This is a clear dereliction of duty by an administration that claims it cares about young people, yet at the same time does everything to deny them a safe and secure future in their own country. GHRA, crime, and the Amerindian people. The PPP has noted with interest that the Guyana Human Rights Association, GHRA, has not uttered a single word on the crime situation in Guyana, nor expressed concerns whatsoever as regards the victims of the spiraling crime situation. The uncanny silence by the GHRA on the crime situation is reminiscent of its silence on the racial and political discrimination and victimization, as well as the witch-hunting exercises currently being executed by the APNU-AFC coalition administration against persons who, in their view, are perceived as supportive of the PVPC administration. The GHRA has not uttered a single word expressing concerns over the arbitrary and capricious dismissal of 1,972 Amerindian youths from 187 villages and communities previously employed as community support officers under the Youth Entrepreneurship and Apprenticeship Program. The GHRA has completely and contemptuously overlooked the fact that these young Amerindian people have been discriminated against and denied the right to work, equality, and protection by the state. By virtue of this dastardly act, the Amerindian CSOs no longer enjoy the $30,000 payable every 3 months to them. However, it is this very government who took away the $30,000 from the Amerindian youths, have at the same time awarded themselves hefty salaries even before turning a straw as government ministers. The GHRA has turned a blind eye to this glaring act of discrimination and victimization of the Amerindian people, who, under the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of the Indigenous People, the International Covenant on Economic and Cultural Rights, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the Vienna Declaration, preserves their right to be protected by the state of Guyana, who is party to these conventions and declarations. The PPP condemns the GHRA for neglecting what is clearly and advancing what is clearly a biased position on the crime situation, as well as in respect to the plight of the Amerindian people. Prime Minister Nagamootoo. The PPP notes with utter disgust the empty talk by the Prime Minister, Moses Nagamootoo, at his party's recent press conference. Mr. Nagamootoo was quoted in the press stating that, quote, he will press Harmon for the mystery documents from China related to the US $5 million outstanding payment due for the sale of government's GT&T shares to a Chinese company. Further, Nagamootoo on another matter, namely the controversial Parque Mita debacle, sought to obfuscate the issue and throw dust in the eyes of the public, stating that his party will, quote-unquote, devise a posture in the Parliament if the Speaker allows the PPP-sponsored motion to be debated in the House. This is a most bizarre statement coming from the Prime Minister of a country. In effect, what Nagamootoo is saying is that the policy of the AFC on such a critical economic matter will be decided on the floor. In fact, his colleague Ramjatan had already declared that the Parque Mita issue is a matter for the City Council and that Parliament cannot dictate to the City Council what position it should take or not take on a matter that is properly before the Council. Finally, Prime Minister Nagamootoo and President Granger appears to be at odds as regards the methodology for constitutional reform and the pace with which consultations ought to proceed. It is to be recalled that Mr. Nagamootoo was quoted as saying, quote, I want to start by humbling the power of the President and the excess powers of the executive, end of quote. How Mr. Nagamootoo will press Mr. Harmon to fulfill his wish is anybody's guess. It is to be recalled that this is the same person whose wings Mr. Nagamootoo and company wanted to clip. Worse yet, how will the Prime Minister be able to press Harmon when he is powerless in light of the fact that the Commingsburg Accord is now dead and buried, with the AFC as mourners in witness to the burial? Thank you.
There you had the statement. Now we'll ask a question. Yes, Adam.
Yeah. Sir, there's a couple of questions. If I can start one at a time.
Yes, please.
Let's start with the Cuban doctorate issue.
Yeah.
And you blame the government for not registering these doctors since last November. Isn't it the role of the Guyana Medical Council to register doctors?
One at a time.
Yeah, let me give you the one.
Now, these are doctors, these are Guyanese young people that were sent abroad by the government on the basis of scholarships. So first of all, let us establish that fact. They were government-sponsored scholarship awardees, number one. Number two, while in Cuba, it was the government of Guyana that took care of their welfare issues through the embassy of Guyana in La Habana. It was the government of Guyana that provided airfares to and from Havana, save and except in cases where they traveled privately on vacation, etc. On their return to this country, to our country, it is logical to expect that the government of Guyana will look into the welfare in all angles of these returned and qualified medical doctors. So while technically speaking, it is the council that is required to do as you say, nevertheless, it is the government through the Ministry of Public Health that ought to take the initiative or take steps to ensure that the Medical Council deal with these matters in the same way that the Ministry of Public Health has taken steps to look into the welfares and the concerns of the student nurses whose exams fall under the Nursing Council.
The Nursing Council is a state-controlled body, but it isn't the Medical Council, an independent authority in the same way as the Public Service Commission and all the other service commissions. Therefore, are you suggesting that the government should dictate to these bodies, if they dictate to the Medical Council, by extension you should have a right to dictate to the private sector committee, to the Public Service Commission, the Police Service Commission, and so on?
No, 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 no. I know where you're going, Mr. Adam Harris. I'm not going there.
But that's where it starts.
No, 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 no. I have not started there. Don't put words in my mouth. I keep telling reporters, print what I say. Don't print what you interpreted me to have said, because we will have a problem.
Next question.
The next question is on the GRAs, that was the most recent. You say that the GHRA, is silent and you're taking this body to task.
Yes.
Is it the same?
Do you have a problem with that?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because it was the same GHRA
Yeah.
that when you were in government and it was critical of their government, you choose to ignore. As a matter of fact, you criticize the GHRA administration and you call the GHRA as something of the past. So if it was dead and buried, then why should you resurrect it now?
You don't resurrect anything now. The GHRA exists. It's a functioning organization. It makes statements from time to time. You know, it wakes up from time to time, Rip Van Winkle style. But whenever it makes a statement, or whenever we consider it necessary to pronounce on the GHRA's position on an issue or another, then we shall so do, as we have done in this case, because we have noticed that, you know, in this crime situation, you have victims, as well as you have people who are caught and charged and taken before the court. Well, that's the justice side. But what about the other side, the injustice side? You know, where a lot of young people, a lot of people are suffering. People are in jail awaiting trial. And so many things are happening, but the Guyana Human Rights Association is not saying anything, so it seems as though the human rights issue is biased in favor of one set of people as against another, the victims. This is what we're raising our concerns over.
One, and the last one for now has to do with the student nurses issue, sir.
Yeah.
You said the student nurses are disinclined to sit another exam over allegation of leaked exam papers. At the national level, CXC to be exact, Guyana paid a lot of money over the same issue of leaked exam had to resit, I think it was 2 examinations. What's the problem here if there is a suspicion of dishonesty and rewriting the exams?
Well, that is precisely the point, that there is a suspicion. There's no evidence of an incontrovertible nature that would require the student nurses to resit the exam. So we should not convert suspicions into fact. And that, I believe, is where the problem is.
Other question? Any other journalists want to ask before Adam come back? Adam, if you continue.
Oh, is that fair? I only think them three because
You run out?
No, I run out. They got other questions. They got other questions.
Okay, well, take your time now, take your time.
I wanted to go back to the question that you were
I want to use you as a sounding board for readiness for Parliament this afternoon.
Love it. I want to go back to the Cuban trained doctors.
Hmm.
You would agree, sir, that some of the people who came back from Cuba, so we had people who came back without qualifying, and they disappeared, although we bring them back. But we had people who came back with grades that were considered inadequate. As I mentioned in the column, Vivian Michelis, head of the Guyana Medical Council, had a problem registering those doctors then. So, what is the problem with these? What were the grades that these 92 people had to put them in a hospital to deal with people sometimes in critical conditions?
Well, here again, we have statements being made impugning the professionalism of persons who have returned as trained medical doctors.
No, they don't come finish the training in Guyana.
Pardon?
We finish the training in Guyana, they come and they do their final year here.
That's what I said in my statement. They did the internship here for a year and so forth. But the statement that I saw over the weekend, raises more questions than answers. And therefore, it would seem to me that in the same way that the student nurses are concerned about their future as professionals in the nursing sector, it is logical to expect that these young doctors would be concerned also about their future in the medical sector as well, but at the doctoral level. So, what we're hearing doesn't seem to be convincing to the population at large. We're hearing individual views being expressed by an individual. But who has taken into consideration the collective interests of these returned medically trained doctors? Who have taken that into consideration? It is the government, as I said before, it is for them. I am not suggesting, and I never suggested anything of the sort, either in my statement or in my preliminary remarks, that the government must, go and interfere or direct the medical council or give instructions to the medical council. I'm very cautious with my language. I said that the government must take the initiative to seek to advance the interests of the medical doctors, to ensure that all the measures that are required of them, because who will they turn to? They have to turn to the subject ministry. In the same as the nurses turn to the subject ministry, the doctors will turn to the subject minister or the subject ministry to assist them in advancing the process. How they will do that is a matter, I believe, that most likely will be in keeping with certain protocols. I don't think the doctors are demanding any interference that anybody go and operate like a bull in a china shop. So let the protocol be followed, but someone has to take the initiative. Now, I don't expect that these doctors will go trooping one by one, knocking at the door of the medical council, you know. So it's better for the government or the Ministry of Public Health to represent these persons, because in the final analysis, they're going to work in the public health sector for the 5 years where they're on contract. And therefore, it is for the government through the Ministry of Health to pursue and look into the interests and the welfare of these young people, rather than have them individually going and knocking at the door of this. And in fact, they ought not to do that. So somebody has to take care of the interests, and I believe the onus falls on the Ministry of Public Health to do so in a manner that is consistent with whatever protocols or procedures that is required to be done.
So did we make any effort to approach the medical council? I mean, the party, for
Who?
example, did the party try to talk to members of the medical council to find out why these doctors have not been registered?
No, we haven't done that, but we've heard representation. Persons have come here making representation to acquaint us, merely to acquaint us and to bring us up to date with what is happening in respect to their, as we would usually say, the issues affecting them.
Did we try to ascertain the grades of these doctors during limbo? What did they come back with? What kind of grades? Did they come back mediocre? Did they come back as highly skilled?
No, I don't think our task is to get in. That is for the Medical Council and the Ministry of Health and the Cuban authorities to establish. Whether it's an internal matter, right? That is something that ought to be established in a tripartite, through a tripartite approach. The Cuban authorities, the council, and the government.
Suppose that was actually done, hence the people in limbo.
Well, I can't act on speculation. I don't know.
Any other question? Okay, if no other question. Harm, you finish?
Yeah, I mean, the colleagues probably want to go. Yeah, I want to stop that.
All right, thank you all very much.